what you're looking at is the first loop of filaments, okay? And you're gonna say, what? We'll get there. Now, in the BC 348, there are two strings of filaments. Each one has 4 tubes, okay? Each one 6 volts, so that's 24 volts in a series string. And there's 2 series strings. So anyway, this is the first string you should troubleshoot. Now, to start off with, you'll see on the diagram for the filaments, if you locate it on the internet, it'll tell you the oscillator. And you may not realize there is a tube in here. Now, I have removed it. You got to undo this cover. And down in here, you'll see a socket. And that's for the oscillator. And, okay, so pin 2 of the oscillator is to ground. So put your clip lead on ground and touch pin 2 and get continuity. Okay, R times 1. That comes out comes out on pin 7. It comes up to the first RF. Now we got to flip this. All right, ready to flip? Okay. Now I've got it marked. Let's see if we're in the frame here. All right, first RF, second RF detector, just like the diagram. And you can find this diagram on the internet, and he may have some of the wires. There's a couple different versions of the same drawing, but it'll still work. And one of the tricks is over on the detector tube on pin 7, the wire that goes off to the dynamo, the generator. Anyway, it goes over. This goes out on 7. You'll see another wire on there, and that goes up to a capacitor on top, and that's to keep RF from getting on the filaments coming in on the 24-volt line of the aircraft. But this goes to 24 volts from the to the dynamotor. All right, and that lights your tubes. And this is a series string with 4 tubes. It equals 24 volts. This is a second string. But I want to tell you some of the tricks of just this string here. You got your oscillator wire coming down. All right, now I have it marked. I buzzed it up. See, make sure I'm in the frame. Here's my wire for my oscillator. And then these 2 tubes have another wire going to them, and pin 2 is grounded on maybe 3 of these. And they're grounded, and then they have a hot. They're in parallel. So you have to realize that these 4 tubes are the first string you're going to have to deal with. And you can wire them up several different ways to series string, no big deal. Now out here on this 24-volt line, you'll see on the schematic there's a resistor, and I believe that's an equalization resistor. It might come off one of these tubes on the diagram. What it is these tubes really weren't made for series heating, series string, so I believe it's an equalization. Helps limit the current when you first turn it on, so one tube doesn't get shocked all the time. But the radio will still work without the resistors. But let's see what else I wanted to tell you. Oh, I wanted to tell you the bottom of the tube. We're looking at the bottom. The bottom. There's the notch. There's pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? From the bottom, counterclockwise or clockwise. Counterclockwise when you go on top. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I had a knucklehead in RCA tell me I was doing it backwards. And then I gave him a socket. I don't think this one has numbers. I gave him a socket that had numbers on them. And he started to argue with me. He was going to double down that the numbers on the socket were wrong. And he couldn't see them because he needed glasses. He's one of those people that goes through life and never gets glasses. A know-it-all. A know-nothing. Doesn't know shit from Shinola. And I wanted to say, the troll is still going on and on and on about the IF cam. The IF cam's already done. It's already in the radio. You know, by the time these guys, they run their mouth, by the time I'm already 40 steps ahead of them. I went through a lot of trolls and annoying people when I was building CNC machines. And I had 32 different models. And then online, out of the 32 models, I think I had 12 models that I sold. But they would constantly tell me, something like this: I'm an engineer. I have many credentials. You can't mill circuit boards with one of your CNC machines. I said, would you like to buy one? Go down in the area, down on my webpage, and there you can buy a motor driver circuit milled on my machine. Yeah, shut him right up. He didn't come back. And then if you notice now, most CNC machines can, even the cheapest ones, can mill a circuit board. But this guy was an internet expert. And the last guy, the trolling guy, you got to list your sources. I don't have to list shit, dude. And if it wasn't for woke and all this, I would tell you what you actually are. Okay? And he put, be nice to me. No, I don't have to be nice to you. I do these videos to show you what I'm working on. And I figure it'd be nice to show you that there's 4 tubes in series on the first series string. And one of them's the oscillator. So these 3 are in series. And this wire goes out to the dynamotor. All right? And then it comes in here. And I clicked it up because there was another wire on the same pin that was confusing me. So I ohmed it out, and it goes up to a capacitor on top. And that is on the schematic. And I wanted to find the guy who had the right pin numbers, and I found it. In other words, there are ones where they get a little inventive around in here. But I wanted the exact numbers, so I knew which wires to remove on here. Because the guy was pretty neat with it. And they usually are. And they use bus wire a lot. So if you see pin 2 going to pin 1 on the tube, pin 1, a lot of octal tubes, is actually ground. It's actually ground for the metal. This metal case on top is a shield, and it actually goes to pin 1 on the tube, on most of the tubes. So in any radio, if you need ground that's got octal tubes, usually you can go to a pin 1, and that's what they do. And then they cut some other wires, and this is where you should start. To understand, ohming out over on the oscillator, finding your ground, pin number 2 is ground, pin 7 comes over to here. Do that first. Now you know this has to go into the first RF tube. First RF, second RF detector. Okay, that's it. I just wanted to tell you, this is what I've shown you. This is where I start, and you have to take the panel off. And a lot of people go, there's actually people. I was wondering what that panel is for on the radio. He's got a BC 348, and he's going to rebuild it, but he has to ask somebody else what the panel is. I worked with guys like that in RCI. What they basically, their job was they would put a box of tubes on this thing. It would go up in the air and it would drop back down. They do that 3 times, take the box, put it in the other pile, take another box out of the pile. And they would get into projects that they had no clue what they're doing. They didn't own any tools. And what they do, they go around and talk to each person about the project they're going. And some people just would say, "Get away from me." No, get away from me. I've heard this nonsense before. I had a guy at work. He bought a bunch of cable TV connections, connectors and splitters and stuff from this one guy. And then he went around to everybody in the place. Do you think he charged me $8 for this? Do you think it was worth it? He gave the guy like $100 worth of equipment because it was stolen. And this guy went around to each person, and he did that with everything. And he bought a watch one time. It was a Seiko, and he made the guy special order it. And the guy kept telling him, "Look, you're not going to like the watch. It's too plain looking." So he paid a lot of money for it. He comes into work, he shows everybody, and everybody says, "That thing looks like a $5 Timex." So he takes it back to the jeweler, and then he comes back next time. "That jeweler gave me a hard time about returning the watch." The jeweler begged him not to order that watch, that he wouldn't be pleased with it, and that he'd want his money back. And he did exactly that. He was another character. I can't say more about him because of woke. All right? But there are people out there that they're so freaking stupid, it's unbelievable. Yeah, I want you to show your sources. Dude, where are your videos? Where are your videos? Where are your videos? That's all I got to say. All right, that's it.